Hello and welcome to my tutorial on photomontage and creating images with multiple versions of the same character in the same frame. For this tutorial, you're going to have 5 different pictures of the character with the background in the same place, and you will stitch those images together to create one image. I am an artist and I create wearable art projects and performances using my characters that I call fine art superheroes. I've done projects in Boston, Barcelona, France, and in New York. What I like to do is choose locations that are less renowned or less recognized. For this tutorial, we're going to be looking at photographs I shot at the Quincy Quarry in Quincy, Massachusetts, and I shot Jeff Jean-Philippe wearing the suit and standing on some rocks up high. The Quincy Quarry is known for just being a place where people can graffiti anything they want. Here I have opened up all 5 photographs that I'm going to be using, and I've loaded all the images into one set. I have that saved as period allele edit. The photograph doesn't have a name yet, so we're just going to do that. Right now we have all 5 frames copied and pasted and loaded into period allele edit, and what I'm going to do next is copy them so that I have and drag them down to the plus sign at the bottom of the layer screen. Alright, now this is how I like to have things, and I'm ready to edit. Again, you can see the layer copies on top of the original layers. Let's put them in a folder that's called Group 1, and let's get the other ones and put them in a folder and call that Group 2. All I have to do is select the layers and click on the folder button. Done. Alright. Now it's time to start the editing process, and here's where the fun stuff happens. What I've done is made the top layer an overlay so that I can compare the differences between the top layer and the layer underneath. Each layer is a photograph, and when I click on overlay, what I do is blend the photographs together. This is sped up, of course. In a moment, it's going to be time to start erasing. I want to have the first layer at 50% opacity in order to erase the layer beneath it, and I'm just erasing with my eraser tool. I really want to go carefully through the headdress because I know there are a lot of jagged edges, and erase just the bits that I see. You can toggle back and forth and compare things, but basically you got to take this one step at a time. I am erasing a hole in the top layer, and the reason I'm doing that is because when I change the opacity back to 100, it will look like there are 2 figures right next to each other. Now this is of course sped up. When working on the edges and erasing them, it's really important to have the hardness on the edge of the brush set to something like 50% or even 0%, and what that does is ensure that the edges of your eraser are feathered. So right now when I erase, the edge is feathered, which is essentially blending in the background, which is actually on top, to the foreground, which is actually underneath it. And when you erase your hole in the image that way, it tends to be better on the edge or look more realistic because there's more of a blend. So the hardness, as you can see now, is 50%. And we're going to speed through the rest of this process because it's a lot of repetition. Erasing the space around the legs, around the arms, fingers, changing the size of the eraser as you go through it and as you progress. Let's speed this up to 1000%, and I've made the top layer totally opaque for a moment just so I can see where I miss spots along the edges. When you play with the opacity a little bit, it shows you your mistakes or spots you missed. Speeding this up a little bit, we're almost done with the first layer and the second layer, and we're going to move on to the third character, third layer. Alright, to make this easier, I'm going to hollow out the inside a little bit, and then I'm going to get more detailed and erase the edges. Where there's blue sky, I don't have to be too careful about the overlay and about the differences between one frame and the other. It's only when we get to the trees and the branches do I have to be more careful. So with this, I'm kind of erasing quickly, and I can fix it later, but just trying to be close to the edge as much as I can. Again, this is sped up, that's why it looks like it's happening really fast. Okay, checking over, checking for mistakes, moving on. That is the third character. With this fourth character, I'm going to do something really quick, which is because the character is behind a bush, I'm going to include the bush in the character and erase the two together. I'm about to accidentally erase the wrong layer. Control Z to go back and undo that, and then erasing the right layers. You can see how the bush kind of seems to grow out from the top of the character, so I'll just include the bush as if it's all one, and there won't be any inconsistency between the branches and the body. And so that's really quickly done. This one I'm going to go back to taking my time and going slow on, so that if there's any problems, it'll be easier to control. There's just too much information going on, so to go a little bit at a time is better here. I sped up the video 1000%. And carefully erasing the arms, leaving the head dress for last. It looks very quick when you do it this way or when you view it this way, but it actually is very slow and tedious. Okay, and now I have all 5 characters. They should show through, but what I have to do is actually re-erase holes in layer 3 so that the character will show through all the layers and not just the top layer. You could just cut away, you can kind of cut away big, you don't actually have to pay attention to the profile of the character. You just need to put holes in your subsequent layers so that in the end the characters show through layer 2, 3, and 4 if they're in layer 1, and meaning basically that the character, the image comes through all layers instead of not just the first one. Alright, now I'm feeling confident about the background, where everything is. Toggling back and forth. The backgrounds may not be aligned perfectly, but if the eye can't tell the difference, if the eye doesn't notice there's something wrong, then it's really okay. The point is to not let the eye feel like, okay, something's off, something's wrong. This is the final image, cropped and everything. And what I'm going to do is something interesting. I'm actually going to cut the image and reposition a few things. Select all the layers, copy them, merge them together. Then make a few copies of that. Move it outside the group, of course. We're going to take the new merged image and pass a few layers of them through each other and blend them. We're going to explore improving the contrast or improving the brightness as well. The soft light is ideal for improving the contrast in the image and making the image look overall a bit more dramatic. And what I like about it is that the blues look bluer. I don't want it at 100% opacity. This layer that's sitting on top, the main layer, should let some light pass through it and should be less intense than its maximum possible effectiveness. So I bring it down to 75. Now I'm exploring another layer, seeing what that does at 75, and in the end I'm just going to leave it with the soft light and not add any other factors or features to it. But lighter color is sometimes a good filter or a good blend mode to use in order to bring up the colors if you feel like that's needed. This was photographed at sunset. There's plenty of light. It's just a matter of bringing out the blues and some of those deeper cool colors so they're not faded. One thing I noticed as I was editing is that the pants look a bit faded in the images and they needed some color adjustment. So I made a mental note to come back and sort of shade this crotch area to better match the contrast and saturation in the rest of the image. Now what I'm going to do is something really simple, and I'm just going to use the color picker to get the blue that matches the suit, and I'm just going to shade those powderized areas in blue so that they don't look faded or roughed up. And this goes pretty fast. It's great that I don't have to use a complicated tool like a contrast filler or a stamp tool, and all I'm doing is painting with my paintbrush with the darken blend mode, and I'm painting it at 50% opacity. And what it's doing is basically working with the pixels behind it to darken them and to make them more bluish. Now is the time that I would check over the image and look for any spots I missed or any inconsistencies, but we can skip that since I did this so well. Here is the final image with all 5 characters, one after another, standing on the graffitied rocks. I'm going to do one other thing. I like to cut up the image. I like to do something to disrupt the image and make it almost deconstructed. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the figure on the far right and move him from the front to the back of the image, and I'm going to cut up the background in the process, kind of disrupting the image and almost annoying the viewer, but in a good way, because hey, it's art. If you're not annoyed, someone's not doing something right. It's going to be my final image as I've decided to do it. We're going to have this character in the back of the image, kind of separated from the rest of the group rather than at the front, and the photography or the background is sort of discontinuous from the rest of the footage, but in a way it sort of fits because there's a progression of heads that kind of wave and echo the background, and also there's a continuity in the profile of the rocks, the land. Alright, so this has been my tutorial on how to photo montage using Photoshop. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos. Check out more of the videos on my website if you'd like to know more about my work and my projects.